Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody, and welcome to Pangolin, the conservation podcast. The show dedicated to exploring and amplifying the world's underappreciated conservation stories. The stories that inspire me, and I hope will inspire you too. I'm your host, Jack Baker, and today I am joined by one of the hosts of the Zoology Ramblings podcast and content producer for the Biome project, the absolutely brilliant, wonderful, amazing Robi Watkinson. As you may know, this series we are celebrating all things Africa, and so we chat all about Robi's experiences across countries like South Africa and Zambia, and I get extremely jealous because they are fantastic. We talk about things like filming out of the side of a plane with no doors on, which maybe I'm slightly less jealous of that. That sounds scary, as you will learn. We talk about getting slightly too close for comfort with crocodiles. We talk about otter spotting. We talk about the essential but tiresome task of removing invasive eucalyptus. All sorts of amazing, amazing things. We also discuss the importance of diversity and seeing yourself in the field of conservation. And we talk about some amazing, amazing people who inspire Robi. We also talk, of course, about his experiences in one particular place, which he loves, and the picture he paints of his experiences there are fantastic. So we talk about why, of course, he has left his heart in the Luangwa Valley, and I can see why. And again, I'm jealous that I've never been. But yes, I will kind of leave it there. I won't spoil too much. And yes, I hope you all enjoy. So without further ado, let's get started. And welcome back to the show. I am now joined by Robi Watkinson, content producer for the Biome project and co-host of the Zoology Ramblings podcast. And thank you so much for joining me today, Robi. I'm so excited to finally get to chat to you. I feel like I've known you for so long through the podcasts, and it's so great to finally have a chance to sit down and chat.
I know. Thank you very much for having me on. I feel exactly the same way. I have listened to the Pangolin podcast for a while, and I always think it's funny when two podcasters who have like cross-pollinated on their podcasting things actually get to talk. And I'm like, oh, hang on, I know you. And I've never met you before in my life. But thank you very much for having me on. It's a real pleasure.
It's my absolute pleasure as well. And it's one of those things, one day we will be in the same room as each other and we'll walk right past each other because we'll go, they look so familiar. Yeah.
It's always I saw them on a screen one time.
And then you realize, oh, you're not actually just a 2D face or whatever it is you see. Like you're a whole fully formed human being. This is bizarre, but yes.
My God.
So no, it's lovely to chat to you. And I guess the thing that I do with everybody, because I do my research, I do my background kind of question writing and things, and I write a little introduction for people. But what I always like to do is kind of, for in the most part, kind of hand it over to you and say, could you introduce yourself to the listeners? Could you tell them a little bit about you? What should they know about you going into this conversation?
Oof, no pressure then. So, hello, listeners out in the world. I'm Robi Watkinson. I'm a wildlife filmmaker and conservation biologist. I studied for my undergrad zoology at the University of Leeds in the UK, and I've now shifted to studying a master's in conservation biology at the University of Cape Town's Fitzpatrick Institute for African Ornithology. And yeah, I podcast with the wonderful Emma Hodson on the Zoology Ramblings podcast, and I'm also a co-founder and co-host of the Biome project. What else do people need to know about me? Okay, right, yes. So my biggest research interests are in rewilding, and then movement ecology of like keystone species, megafaunal species, but also the little things that everyone forgets because everyone's going, oh, we love the rhinos, and there's lots of little stuff out there as well, which not necessarily gets the same amount of coverage, and I'm really into all of that stuff. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, and I feel like that little CV makes you the perfect fit. Just that last sentence about like, oh, the little
Well,
things. Like, of course, the perfect fit for this show where we talk about all the weird and wonderful little creatures that you find all across the world, and in this series, of course, focused around Africa. So I'm so
exciting.
excited. Yes, I'm so excited to have you here to talk all about that. And what I know you from is, of course, those kind of big projects that you do, I guess, alongside the degrees and everything else. You're one of, I feel like, a similar person to me in that you probably don't like to sit still very much.
Oh God,
You
no.
want to be up and doing things. And so you also have, of course, yes, you mentioned the Biome Project and Zoology Ramblings. And that's where I guess some of the listeners may know you from or may recognize your voice from. Do you want to tell us just a little bit about that so that if anyone's listening and intrigued, they can maybe go and
Yeah, of
find out
course.
more? Hmm.
Well, it's entirely flattering to think that anyone would recognize my voice. But yeah, the two main projects that I am involved in and run are Zoology Ramblings and Biome. So I'll probably
Hmm.
do it in chronological order. So a bit like the Pangolin podcast, I understand.
Hmm.
Zoology Ramblings and Biome both grew out of the COVID lockdowns.
Hmm.
Me and my wonderful partner in zoological crime, Emma Hodson, we were both going to go away and do conservation work overseas for part of our undergrad, like do like a year work overseas. And then COVID happened, so we couldn't do that. So we were sitting around thinking, oh crap. Oh God, can I swear on this?
Yes. So,
Okay,
yeah.
thank God. Great. So we were sitting around thinking, "Oh shit, we can't do anything now." And so we founded. Basically, we were quite drunk one evening, sitting in my parents' cottage, and we were looking for otters because the little
Mhm.
things, and that's all we could do in lockdown. And we had this long, like 3 hour conversation about, I think, like canned hunting. I think, and at the end of it, we just kind of looked at each other and thought that'd make quite a good podcast.
Mhm.
So we did, and then we turned it into Zoology Ramblings podcast, which is doing quite well. We did that Spotify Next Wave thing, which completely took us by surprise because we put zero effort into Zoology Ramblings. We literally just sit around and talk about wildlife.
Mhm.
Um, and then, yeah, Biome was essentially taking Zoology Ramblings a bit more seriously. Both Emma and I have a real passion for wildlife filmmaking, so we partnered with a really cool commercial film company called Grizzly Productions. And we essentially made Biome, which was like a platform for conservation podcasts, not just with us, but also like people in the field, like boots on the ground conservationists, wildlife filmmakers.
Mhm.
And we also made our own like documentary series. So this summer was quite busy. We managed to do a film about rewilding in Britain. We also did some stuff down in South Africa, some stuff with human wildlife conflict in Zambia. And yeah, it's sort of it's been one of those things, much like Pangolin podcast, where we never expected potentially for anything to come of it. And then it's
Mhm.
suddenly going, oh, look, and that leads to that, and that leads to that, which has been quite, fun.
Mhm. And you look back on the storyline and you go, "Hang on, like I just started this because yeah, I thought it would be fun." And now 2 or
Yeah.
3 years in, you're like, "This is
Yeah.
my whole life."
Yeah. I
Everything
mean,
that like
it's all consuming, and it
Mhm.
literally started from me and Emma sitting in our kitchen, having a slightly tipsy rant about canned hunting.
Mhm.
And it was Emma's idea. She was like, "Well, that's quite good for a podcast." And I was sort of sitting there like, "God, no one would want to listen to us. I certainly wouldn't." And so I was like, "Don't be ridiculous. We shouldn't do this." And Emma was like, "No, no, no. Come on, let's do it." And I was like, "All right, fine." um,
So
so
that's
yeah.
yeah, and I mean, we're really lucky you did because I have to say, like, there was a period of time last year where every commute to and from work, I would have it on, and then I'd have
Oh,
it on
really?
the way home again. Yep, and it's like for anyone who's like listening, I feel like whenever you have people who have done degrees in biology and zoology and all of these things, sometimes there's a tendency for the way they speak about things to become unaccessible. But I
Oh,
actually
it's
think
dull
what
as
your show
dishwater.
does, like well, what your show does really well is, and like all the projects you do so well, is make them accessible, which I think is like a really nice gateway in. So even if you don't necessarily know all the terms or like whatever, you can pick up on what you're saying and like still like understand it and like feel like you're learning something as well as just listening to two friends have a nice conversation about whatever it is. So yeah,
Well, it's
it's
it's really nice that you say that because in the back of our heads, I'm always like, God, I'm using a Latin name because I really love Latin names because I'm
mhm.
a deep in the nerd. And so I'm always like, no, actually, hang on. If we are going to be effective about this, we have to communicate well at a range that everyone can understand, and a way that kind of brings everyone along with you. So you're not using terms that are technically exclusionary because people don't have. Not everyone's got the same access to this kind of level of I guess scientific discourse you'd call it. So it's nice to know that it's working because that's something that's quite close to my heart as well. I'm like, everyone should be able to enjoy this. The language shouldn't really matter, which completely contrasts the fact that I will just speak in Latin all the time. But anyway,
yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Uh, now, like something that I think I really love about the show is like obviously you touch on so many of your interests, you touch on all sorts of different things, and I think something that I noticed, and the reason I invited you to kind of be here today is that, and specifically for the Africa series, I guess, is because you talk about obviously issues in the UK and kind of all over the place, but there seems to be a certain like lightness and love and joy for African wildlife and your experiences Africa. Whenever you talk about them on the show, you seem to just like fill with this like wonder and joy. And so I wanted to kind of have you on to talk a little bit about kind of your experiences and the things that you've done. And I guess the beginning question for that is, where did that love of African wildlife come from? Was it always something, or where did it come from?
Well, I originally wanted to be a bin man, and then I wanted to be a
Interesting.
paleontologist. And
Classic.
paleontologist went for quite a while. I still
Mhm.
think, if I ever don't do conservation filmmaking, I'll just go to paleontology. But I think, the roots of it lie from all those, documentaries when we were younger.
Mhm.
Growing up in the UK, there isn't vast amounts of wildlife to go around. So it was always a bit of escapism. And my mother grew up in Zambia, in Malawi. So I don't even know when it was. I can't even remember when it was. We went back to go see places she grew up and family friends that were still there. And we went to the South Luangwa Valley in Zambia, which is forever where most of my heart shall remain. And yeah, it was the first time I ever saw a leopard. And it was just, it was a couple of meters away, and I just turned around and I looked at it, and it kind of looked at me, and it was a bit of a moment.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like the emotional bond there. There's also a bit of an academic thing going on in that the megafaunal extinctions that have resulted in Britain and Europe being so bereft of interest, well, bereft of large animals, didn't really happen in Africa. And you can make quite a convincing case that Africa is the only the continent where humans are a native species. So for me, that's fascinating because you've got suddenly a whole new omnivorous species to slot into that system, and you can explore ecosystem function, and you can explore predation, and that links to the really broader issues of land exclusion and ethics in conservation and human rights and conservation, especially in the aftermath of colonialism and what's going on with neocolonialism. So for me, that's sort of the academic side of it. I think, my God, that's just amazing to look at, and I think that's really important to look at. But then the kind of the emotional side of it is I would never leave the Luangwa Valley if I had the choice. I just wouldn't.
No, that's
But,
that's fair. And I feel like when I was doing the kind of like research for the show, I always like to go onto people's social media and just see what they've posted, just to get an idea of like their interests. And I could tell that just from like every single post I went in, I was like, oh, this might be somewhere else in Africa. Maybe this will be. They're all of them location
it's
tagged to
just
the exact.
Zambia.
Yep, yep.
There's a few. There's one or two. There's quite a few in South Africa, but you do have to look for them.
No, so like
But yeah.
I guess like, and it also like that gives me so much to dig into in terms of like I could like there's two sides there, I guess, the academic and the emotional connection. I guess if we start with that emotional connection, and
Mm-hmm.
I guess a question that I would have is kind of like, when you look at that, all of those experiences, when you look back on kind of childhood, growing up and being around these spaces, what are some of the memories that really like you hold on to and are really like special of like, this is why I love like this part of the world, and this is why I want to be here and do what I do. Like, what are those like core memories for you?
Um, do you know? I think the first time I ever went to Luangwa was 2018. So not not
Really?
like a young child at all.
Hmm.
Um, I get, yeah. I think for me, I am, as much as I do love the little things. Like if I had to put a name on it, I think for me a leopard is just the most beautiful of animals. Obviously, that's a completely meaningless statement, because if you put me in front of an otter, I would say, "Oh my god, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Do you know what I mean? But the leopards in Luangwa are really, really special. It's thick with leopards, because there's a really interesting ecology going on there with the habitat and such. And so, yeah, for me, the leopards of Luangwa is sort of what draws me back emotionally, just because I just think they're really beautiful and really fascinating ecology, and the interactions between leopards and people are really interesting. Half of my family is Indian, and obviously leopards in India, there's a really big human wildlife interaction there, both conflict and coexistence. So yeah, for me, it's the leopards that bring me back to Luangwa. But then, I mean, Luangwa's also it's a really good stronghold for top level carnivores, and I'm very interested in predator mediated control of herbivore populations and how that influences impacts on vegetation and stuff. And it's a real stronghold for wild dogs, or I think we're now calling them painted wolves. I think there's like a PR thing going on. So I will oscillate between the two. And last time we were there, in fact, summer of 2022, we managed to see painted wolves at a den, and we managed to catch the end of one of their hunts, and that was special, because we don't have anything like that in Britain. We don't have any wolves, and I know they're not even remotely related, but actually seeing that, I was like, this needs to happen across the UK.
And there's something.
This is it, guys.
Yep, they are the one animal that, like, when I went to South Africa, I like to traumatize my parents, as I think all young people do slightly sometimes.
Yeah.
And there was a point where we were driving through this kind of, I want to say resort. It was more of a manicured tourist-esque experience. All of a sudden, like, so many dogs, so many of them, and making that kind of, like, the noise they make that cuts through you, of like, it shouldn't be scary, but it is that loud squeaking, like, shouting noise. I'll maybe insert an audio clip here of that noise, because I have the video still, and it's just so, like, intimidating but so magical at the same time. And I remember just my parents being absolutely horrified by the fact that I was anywhere near this in an open side truck. So I can see why, like, they are, like, enchanting, and I can see why you would also kind of love them, because they have that charisma and uniqueness, and
they do.
They're just fantastic.
And actually, that's mine. So experiences that parents are shocked to hear. Our car broke down one time on the Luangwa. I'd forgotten about this actually until literally just now. Our car, and then was it? And then they were changing the tire. No, the tire was stuck in the sand. That was it. The tire was stuck in the sand, and the guide and my dad and my mum were all trying to fix it and push the car out. And I decided to help by not getting involved. So I wandered down to the riverbank, and there was Luangwa's big crocodiles as well, and there was about 6 of them sleeping on the riverbank. And it was my first time near crocodiles at all, so I was like, I'm going to go see the crocodiles. And I stopped about maybe like 15 meters away, and I thought, oh yeah, this is a good distance. And the crocodiles were just all asleep, and I thought, right, well, I'll take another step. They're just all asleep. And then I was like, right, I'll take another step, and they were all asleep. And I got to about maybe like 7 meters. Maybe 10 meters. Maybe 10 meters. I'm not that stupid. And I thought, right, I'll take one more step. And as I lifted my foot, about 8 pairs of eyes went dunk. And I was like, oh my God, legged it back. And it was a moment, and it hooked me, because it was that moment when you realize how low you are on the food chain. without a car, without a gun, without a spear, without a whatever. And it clocked, and I was like, oh, crocs have been eating hominins in Africa for a very long time, and they're still happy to oblige.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I got back to the car, and I was like, but that's the hook, isn't it? That's the, oh, wow, this is an ecosystem which is functioning. I'm not top dog here, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so like that's that's a story that I feel like my parents would never have let me out of their sight again if I was like, oh yeah,
My mum was not
I walked up
impressed.
and had a look. No, I can't imagine. But no, that's the type of thing, is that fascination and that distinction in our minds of like, I guess like as well, when you're used to seeing animals like this, I guess if you're from a country like the UK, your only real experience of seeing them in person before is maybe in a zoo or in kind of these things. The perception is like, when the barrier is removed there, you're kind of like, oh, okay. And it's one thing when it's like, I remember so distinctly the penguins on Boulders Beach. Like, I remember them
Yes.
so like being so like willing to just like waddle up to you and then
Yeah.
scream in your face if they decided they were unhappy about something. But they like, there's that distinction where it's like, at the end of the day, this is a penguin. That's not the
Yeah.
worst. I can take
You
two
can
steps
take
away
it.
from it, and it can, yeah, I'm winning in this fight.
Yeah.
But when it's something like that, you kind of go, oh, okay,
Yeah.
actually, maybe the distinction, we need to draw that a bit more set in our minds.
Yeah. I
But
think that the other thing that really draws me there is the people,
mhm,
in that I've got a real respect for how difficult it is to live alongside what we in Western Europe and North America consider to be really important wildlife species, and they are really, really important.
mhm,
But if you're living alongside an elephant, and that elephant wipes out a year's worth of your crops, which is your entire income
mhm,
in one night, it can do that. If it's a herd of elephants, won't even take a night. Um, people get killed by elephants, and not nicely.
mhm,
They're pretty brutal. And so last summer we were in South Luangwa making a film about an organization who look at human wildlife conflict mitigation,
mhm,
and we spent a lot of time in the communities surrounding Luangwa, and that was that was really emotionally attaching for me, because it suddenly this is something I've thought about for a long time, as you kind of have to if you're interested in rewilding, but that mismatch between the priorities of people in relatively wealthy countries who don't live alongside very dangerous animals, and the priorities of people who do. Um, and a lot of the time, their countries are potentially poorer because 200 years ago our ancestors nicked their country in the first place.
mhm.
So we can't even conceive of living with a lynx, which is a cat. I don't know why I'm showing that. You can't see that, but it's not even up to my knees,
Mhm.
and yet we have the audacity to say, "Oh, you can't do that," when someone spears a lion because it's eaten its cows, their cows. So that actually, it really always brings me back, the human wildlife interface, and the fact they do it so well, and the fact that against such difficult odds, and I think that's really special, and I think that should really be celebrated, in Loango in particular.
Mm, mm. And I guess that kind of like transitions, I suppose, into the professional, because I think that's something that like that's an issue that I think I talk about a lot. I guess you probably also make sure it is embedded in that ethos of
Mm,
kind of making sure
mm,
that the human is considered as well as the animal. It's something that I think we need to start embedding more and more in work and in conservation. And so I think that leads
massively.
us kind of nicely into like maybe some of the professional or work or interesting experiences that you've had in terms of like the people and the conservation work that goes on in those areas.
Sure.
I guess like there were so many that I wanted to ask about and wanted to kind of bring up, because there have been posts about all sorts of things. And I was just looking through, and they range for listeners who haven't seen you on Instagram and seen your films and things. They range from like stuff that would seem to be like the peak cool conservation storylines of the aerial patrols and surveys and stuff, all the way down to, there was an image of you looking slightly grumpy, which I really thought was quite entertaining,
Ooh,
kind of
which one?
chopping invasive eucalyptus and looking just like
Yes.
slightly annoyed and
Oh,
defeated and kind of like, we're
yeah.
going to keep doing this, but this is not the ideal. And
It's not a
so
battle we're going to win. I was so hot and so grumpy.
like yeah, let's start with the grumpy day. What was that?
Okay.
What happened there? Like, yeah.
That was
Yeah.
actually a university field trip for undergrad,
Mhm.
in our final year of undergrad in the University of Leeds, studying zoology. And we went to a game reserve in the Eastern Cape called
Mhm.
Shamwari. And we were sort of we were doing a load of projects on the rewilding of Southern Africa, which has happened
Mhm.
since the end of apartheid. And we were looking at, stuff like herbivore impacts on vegetation.
Mhm.
And invasives in Southern Africa, where I am now, is a massive, massive deal
Mhm.
because back in the old empire days, we just brought a load of eucalypts and all these invasive fish and pines, all these really water thirsty plants, planted them for recreation and for lumber. And so we were doing some invasive eucalyptus removal, which is really hard. And you think the people who actually have to do it for a living, you think, wow, that's the most hard. That's far more hardcore than chasing lions or buffaloes all day. Like it's
Mhm.
just you got to hack it down with a machete. It's a big tree, and eucalypts sprout from the base as well. You have to get each and every one of those sprouts. You've got to dye it with some what do you call it? Herbicide,
Mhm.
treeicide. Treeicide, that's not a thing. Herbicide. Um, and if you miss one, the tree comes back. So
Mhm.
that was a real, I think it probably was a bit of a losing battle in Shamwari. And when you've got these invasive trees like pines and eucalypts, they alter the soil chemistry, which
Mhm.
alters the fire ecology. And most of these systems down here are fire ecology driven, and if that changes, the really endemic indigenous species get whacked. So yeah, that was a real. That's, I think, the nitty gritty side of conservation, which you don't often see on the Attenborough documentaries. And
Mhm.
so it was a real, yeah, experience of the legwork that goes into it.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember. I think it was the Green Planet, the last series. You saw the
Mm.
equivalent of that where they were
Mm.
shooting it out of a helicopter.
Yes,
Like
which was a
they
bit.
basically,
I was like, can't we do that?
yeah, like why don't we get to go up in the air and do this kind of fun and like go,
Exactly.
yeah. But I can also see though why when they have a group of obliging students, they would go, well,
Yeah,
students,
free
we have a
labor. I
really
mean,
fun task for you today. Yeah,
yeah.
out you
No,
go.
absolutely. I would do
Mhm.
exactly the same thing, and I was happy, obviously happy to do it. But it was a very interesting day.
Yeah, and yeah, it's an interesting one, and it's something that I like to. Whenever there is a plant story or like a little like, I always like to bring it up because I feel like I often I am guilty of this, and I feel like as well as the conservation community at large, but I also fall into this category, even though I work in a botanic garden, of sometimes speaking about animals too much, and so whenever
I
there's a
mean,
plant
yeah,
story,
we'll
I'm like
get
to.
we'll get accused of taxonomic chauvinism. I do have a plant
Mhm.
story for you later, which I can bring in.
Oh,
I made
absolutely.
sure, I was like, because I read about, well, I experienced it recently, and I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
plants.
perfect. I can't wait, can't wait. And well, then I guess on the other end of the spectrum, I have to ask: when you were allowed to go into the air and do kind of that sort of element of it as well, like that must have been an incredible experience. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
It was good fun. It was bloody terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
We were in South Luangwa because so the conservation organisation Tusk were funding us to go down, and there's an organisation called CSL, Conservation South Luangwa, who operate around there, and their remits are human wildlife coexistence and anti-poaching. So we were making 3 films for them. So one of them was looking at their anti-poaching dogs unit. So they'd
Mm-hmm.
recently got some poaching dogs come in from the States, and we were filming some of their trials. So they'd like go out and hide a bit of ivory and some pangolin scales, and the dogs would track it down. Insane, the noses
Mm-hmm.
on those things. Um, and yeah, they were doing it on this kind of like dry floodplain, which was full of like hippo and elephant footprints, like that deep. And the dogs were running in the middle of the heat, and we had these cameras, and we were trying to run after them, flipping over into these hippo holes. So that was really interesting. The second film was on chili mitigation. So their whole strategy for mitigating elephant conflict revolves around chilies,
Interesting. Okay.
which is just ingenious. Elephants don't like chilies, so for high risk farmers, CSL will subsidize the farmers to, instead of planting cash crops, plant chilies, which they can also sell as cash crops.
Mm-hmm.
But the elephants won't cross the chili fields. And then what else did they do? They had like these fences they'd
Uh,
erect around their homes, and they'd smear it with rotten eggs and chili powder to create this like olfactory barrier the elephants won't cross. And the most insane of all was they'd get like these tubes, these like plastic tubes. They put a charge in the end, so like a little gun, and they'd get these ping pong balls. They'd inject them with olive oil and chili powder. So olive oil so it sticks to the elephant, and chili powder so it smells them. And these guys, the chili bombers, would go at night, unarmed, in the pitch black into the fields with these little pea shooters, and if they see elephants, go and try and scare them away. And I've never met braver men and women. You couldn't pay me to go unarmed at night into a field full of elephants and then purposely annoy them.
Yep.
So yeah, they should have immense respect. But then the kind of the flashiest one was we were asked to film one of their anti-poaching aerial patrols, which I was like, yeah, great, sounds fantastic. And then turns out you have to get up at 4:30 in the morning for the sunrise because you're looking for the smoke from poaching fires the night before. And so you need the early morning, you need to be there as the light rises. And then I was sitting in the back, and my producer Alice was sitting in the front with the pilot. And so there's me in the back with a Parks and Wildlife ranger with a very large elephant putting down gun just in case we crashed. So I was like, hi, and he was like, hi. Seeing a massive rival. And then the pilot was like, all right, we're going to take the back doors off so you can lean out and get the shot. And I was like, okay. So he took the whole bloody door off. So I was in this tin can looking out the window over the bush. And I'd put my seatbelt on because I was like, right, put my seatbelt on.
Yeah, that wise choice. Wise choice.
There was none of this. It was just the belt one. And as we took off, it popped open. And I was just like, right, this is how I go.
Yep,
this is it.
I think I would be making myself very familiar with the nice man who was sat next to me with the massive gun, being like, "Please don't let me fall."
Don't let me fall. Yeah. He was very nonplussed. He obviously does this like every day. He would just sit. I was there trying to get these really wobbly shots of like elephants and stuff, and he was just sitting in the back, just like.
So here we are again. It's like his commute to work, just like
literally
off we go. Yep. Oh, that's so amazing. Like, I also love the key phrase, stuff. So you can lean out and get the shot. Not so you can sit back in your chair and nice and safe. We want you just hang out the side of this plane and get a nice video.
And he'd do the thing. So like there was this pride of lions which hadn't got a satellite tag on them. So they thought, right, maybe it's this one pride who the tag dropped off and they've lost track of for the last, I think it was like the last year. So he was like, yeah, we're going to keep getting the shot of the lions. And he's circling and the plane obviously goes like that. And you're at the... I'm like, I've got the shot.
You're like,
he was like, no, we'll do it again. No.
Like, no, I'm good. We've got it. Let's just put it down.
So that was terrifying. Good fun in hindsight, but in the moment, it was very much a.
Yeah,
okay.
Everything tenses of like, okay, we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
I mean, and I assume, like, aside from the shots that were probably you shaking uncontrollably, there was probably excellent content in there.
They were so shaky.
The auto stabilization has never worked so hard on the video editing software.
Oh god, yeah, it was pushing it. It was really pushing it.
But no, I mean, they must have been happy for anyone to hang out the side of a plane with a camera. They must have been satisfied with the end result. So.
I can only hope.
Because you're not doing it again.
Not bloody likely.
No, that's so fascinating, and so such a unique and interesting experience. And alongside that, I guess I feel like a lot of people, when they think about people who document wildlife, like they kind of think about kind of the classic kind of David Attenborough-esque level of kind of like, you have to be this huge famous person to be doing this sort of stuff. And it's amazing that like you're starting this project and you've been invited to then go and help these people capture something that is so important and so interesting. So it's such an interesting kind of story in so many ways. So really.
Yeah, it does feel very surreal. But the thing I think about quite a lot is obviously, I am no more or less passionate than the vast majority, in fact, of all the young conservationists our age out there. And the thing that I think is really important to remember, or at least that I take a lot of value from, is that if you want to go out in the field and do field work, be it conservation or filmmaking, I think it's really important to remember that you don't have to look like Steve Backshall or Steve Irwin, and you don't have to be this kind of gung-ho they're very muscly and good for them. But you don't have to be this kind of very stereotypical jump on a crocodile kind of person. I am very much none of those things. I think you just need a bit of passion, and that's okay. And I think there is a bit of a, certainly I felt, as a mixed race queer person going into this industry, I was like, well, not many people look like me. You have to be kind of like, and I entirely reject it. But actually, so Dan O'Neill is a really inspiring filmmaker for me, in terms of breaking down those barriers, and Jasmine Qureshi as well. And I would not even dream of putting myself in anywhere near the same category as them. But they really inspired me, and I think if there's anyone out there who might feel the same way as me, looking at the stuff they produce and the way they do it, is really, it's really helped me a lot. And I think that's something I mean, we all want to be David Attenborough, but you don't have to. You don't have to fit the mold. And I think that's something I'd quite like to stress.
That's and I got the honor of hearing Jasmine speak last year, at the end of last year, and those people where you're just sat there being like, I am just in.
You're
You could
fantastic.
talk for days, and I would sit here and listen. Like, you are just fabulous, and so
Jasmine is one of the best communicators actually I've ever. I mean, so I got to meet her. I think it was last year, and that was a real. Oh God, no! I think it was this year actually. God, time flies. It was a real. When you just sit there and someone communicates in a way that just hits all the boxes, and you think, wow, that's really special talent. That's fantastic. Very inspiring.
Fantastic. And before this, I mean, I literally could speak her praises for days and days. So if you're listening, Jasmine, we love you, but we are going to have to move on. But no, so that's fantastic. And I feel like so many amazing experiences. I've now, that way, you will know the podcast brain of so many rabbit holes that I could go down, but to try and bring us back onto topic, I guess.
Of course.
So yes, I've asked about I guess I kind of prompted your experiences to talk about. Was there any other experiences you wanted to talk about that were kind of incredible, amazing things that you
in the spirit of the little things? Two of my all-time most incredible wildlife experiences have been in the UK with native species. So it was up with otters on the Isle of Mull with Emma Hodson and Kate Sheridan. Emma now works for the Avon Wildlife Trust. Kate is working for reefscapers in the Maldives. But we were doing Biomes together at the time, and we spent a week, maybe 10 days, chasing otters on the Isle of Mull. And it was one of the happiest times of my life. And I never expected to get that on a relatively little thing in Britain, which is notoriously ecologically depauperate. And it was fantastic. We were sitting in the rain, the Scottish rain pouring down, coats over our cameras to get the shot, the rest of us getting soaked, getting this, the one shot that we wanted of this otter, ran back to the car, dripping, and just went, yeah. So that was one of them. And the other one, also with Emma and Kate, we were on the River Otter in Devon, confusingly, not for otters, we were there for beavers. And we were filming the reintroduced beavers down there, and that was really magical as well. But I think both of those experiences reminded me that even though I think my passion will always be African ecology and African species, and even though Britain is doing so poorly with wildlife conservation, there's still a little bit of magic, and we shouldn't forget that. And I think if you are listening to this in the UK and you ever feel like actually the fun stuff's happening elsewhere, go to Mull for the otters, go to Devon and see those beavers, and it will rejuvenate you. And it will, certainly I felt really hopeful, and share it with your friends. There's nothing quite like seeing wildlife with your friends. Like, we were sat there on the riverbank on the Otter, looking at these beavers. We had a beer in hand, just like, oh look, beavers, great, fantastic. And it was a moment I'll never forget.
Yep, and it's so much more. It's one of those things that when you find something you don't even realize is there. Of like there is so much wildlife around you, no matter where you are. Everywhere has nature is. This series may be about Africa, but nature is all around us and all around the world. There is these amazing experiences to be had, and I could not agree more. As somebody who was lucky enough to be born, raised, grew up in Scotland, I fully vouch for the wildlife.
Yeah, you're already doing better than me. I'm from England. Like, we got nothing.
I mean, yeah, and the good thing about Scotland is I can literally walk. I feel like from my house, if you were to drive 20 minutes in any direction, you would end up somewhere like, and I'm in like right in quite
Nice.
a populated area, so I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And even if it involves getting on a boat to go out and see some puffins, there's stuff
Oh,
there to go and have a look at. So yeah.
lovely. Oh, I'm so jealous. If you drive 20 minutes from my house, you're in Reigate.
Is there nothing wild in
It's
right?
just a
Well,
town.
yeah.
It's just a town in the south of England. Go 20 minutes north, you're in central London. It's just abysmal. But
Well, there's pine martens. There's
there
is pine
is,
martens.
yeah, no, that's true, that's true. And apparently they're going to bring the beavers back to the WWT place in central London. I don't know how that's going to go. We have got the bison down in Kent. That's good fun.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's a fascinating. Yeah, and I remember because you released your interview with that project for the Biomes project.
I know.
And then about a month later, I had recorded one. I was like, they're going to think I'm copying them. But that's okay. I'm just going to put out mine as well.
Did you speak to Stan Smith as well?
I spoke to no, but it was a fabulous conversation. And
well, if you get a chance to go down, go and see the bison at Blean. We filmed for our rewilding film, which is in post production, so it's not out yet. But we went and filmed with Stan the bison man, about this reintroduction, and we were like, "Oh, do you know when the bison are going to come here?" And he's like, "I couldn't possibly say." And like 2 weeks after we recorded the interview, he was like, "The bison are here." We were like, "Oh, great!"
Yeah. That's the way of conservation, though. Especially with the world the way it is, there is a lot of like, it's not happening, not happening, not happening, not happening. Then here
Surprise.
they are. Yep, there you go.
Which I totally agree with. You sometimes you need to.
Yeah. Just keep everything under wraps, and then when there's it's happening, then go for it.
Yes.
But yes, no, it's an interesting one, and I guess like we've kind of got a little bit away from Africa, but it's such a relevant point, and what really like made me think of a good segue back to Africa is
Okay.
it's a stretch, but we're going to use it.
Okay, let's
you were
have it.
talking about your special experience with like otters and viewing these things, and recently I saw, because you have moved to Cape Town, I believe, to go and to do your degree, I recently saw a lovely picture, or was it a little video, picture video of some was it Cape otters, Cape something
clawless otters? Yes,
and like that must be, I mean, as magical as it is to sit probably on a chilly riverbank in the UK, it must be equally, if not slightly more glamorous and wonderful to see these magical creatures now where you go to university, right on the shoreline. Like, that must be fantastic.
It was very strange. My undergrad thesis was on otters in the UK, and I've spent a lot of time filming otters, so I have a real passion for semi-aquatic mustelids. And so I always knew, like, oh, when I move down here, I'm going to try and find the Cape clawless otter, and I thought that was going to entail, sitting on a riverbank for God knows how long with camera traps and stuff. Turns out I was just having fish and chips with my course mates on a nice little town on the peninsula. And because I've spent so long looking for these bloody otters in the UK, my eyes are trained, and I just saw this kind of little flick, and I was like, "That's an otter." And my course mates were like, "It was just a cormorant," and I was like, "No, you don't understand. That was an otter." So we were about to pay the bill, and I was like, "Right, I've just got to go." And I grabbed my camera and legged it down the pier. And the unfortunate side to this story is that this particular Cape clawless otter knows now that if he hangs around the harbour, he can get scraps from fishermen. So I say it. I don't know how to sex an otter. But anyway, sorry.
That's a whole other podcast. We don't have to go into that now. Yeah.
So yeah, it was very much more active than in that area and than it should have been. I probably shouldn't have been able. I mean, I wasn't looking for the thing. I just peered over the side of the pier and it was sitting there and wasn't bothered. So actually, beautiful as it was to see it, it's probably getting a bit too habituated, that one. So I'm going to keep looking for other otters. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, because it's habituated, it doesn't count. Like, yeah, it's great. It's an otter. I love otters. But I'm probably going to also go look for some less habituated ones, because the behavior is going to be different. It was really, really beautiful to see it, though. I was just looking down. I was like, oh my god.
And no, I feel like that, if anything, that makes it more interesting because you then have the comparison of
Mm.
How comfortable is this animal when I am looking down
Yeah.
upon it from above? It's happily
Yeah.
just sat there, rolling
Yeah.
around, doing whatever. But
Yeah. It was
finding,
about. It
yeah,
was like 3 meters away from me, and it looked me dead in the eye and wasn't bothered. And I'm like, okay, that shouldn't be the case. You should have gone.
yeah,
I
yeah.
shouldn't have been able to get that close.
No, you occasionally
Unless I
get
was
those
really
moments of,
hiding.
or you get the occasional moments which I've had a lot in Scotland, which is where like a hare or something will run out, and then it'll see you in a place
Yes.
that you're not usually, and
I
it'll
go.
stop and look at you, and then go, "No, I don't like that," and then keep running, which is kind of
Yeah.
the usual like
Yes.
response of like,
Yes.
"Oh, you're not meant to be here. What's this?" And then off they go. Um, but no, I guess that kind of also brings us to, I suppose, the reason why you are in Cape Town now, not just to hunt otters and see if you can find cool mustelids hiding around, but you're also kind of moved there to do a degree in, what was it you said,
Yes.
conservation biology, and
Yeah.
like,
Conservation biology.
yeah, I guess my question was like that I wanted to ask about, because obviously degrees are different wherever you do them. Like, based in the UK, there was probably a couple options you could have done. You could have gone anywhere in
Mhm.
the world to do a degree in conservation biology. So what was it that drew you to South Africa specifically? What was it that made you want to kind of go there, and yeah, what did you hope to kind of gain from that sort of experience?
Hello. Sorry to interrupt myself. But as always, when we have another podcaster on the show, podcasters love to talk, and we of course talked for far too long. Because of that, I have split this episode in two, and Robi will of course be back next week to finish this amazing discussion about the importance of conservation across Africa, the importance of diversity, the importance of his different experiences and how they've affected him. And so yes, he will be back. Do not fret, listeners. I am not just going to cut a whole bunch of good stuff. Next time, he'll be back to talk about his university experience in Cape Town. He's going to be talking a little bit more about diversity. He'll be talking about... What else did he talk about? He talks about a very strange and unusual and elusive orchid. We talk about the Cape Leopards. We talk about the importance of mental health and conservation. So there's all sorts of amazing stuff still to come. So please tune back in for that next week. Until then, thank you so much for listening. I'm so grateful to have all of you here. I'm so grateful, of course, to Robi for sparing so much of his time to talk to me. You can follow him and the Biomes and Zoology Ramblings. I'll put all the links for those in the description of this episode. You can follow us on social media. We're at Pangolin Podcast on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and everywhere. You can subscribe to the show. You can leave us a nice review. You can find me on all of these things. I'm at Only Jack Baker on Twitter and at The Only Jack Baker on Instagram. All that sort of stuff, the classic podcast spiel. But no, thank you so much for listening, guys. Until next time, thank you. Love you all very, very much. And goodbye.